I'd like to pay my regards, hello sir, to the many distinguished leaders of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that are gathered together, particularly, sir, the chairman of this occasion, Chief Anyoku. I think the nation is actually very lucky in the sense that when you look at the eminence and the fecundity of citizens in the world, I believe Nigeria stands up. That is why our children are making waves in every country of the world. The issue of the Constitution, I have interacted with Professor Nwabueze. I think my first outing with him was 1996, when I accompanied him to the burial of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe in the East. And since that time, we have been speaking about the Constitution. So I'm going to, my discussion, I have a paper. I have given the paper, but I'm not going to talk about the paper. I will talk from my head. I'm going to talk, it's going to be an interaction. And I'm going to go by questions. The first question is, what really is wrong with the Constitution? If you look at the content of the Constitution, it looks very neat, it looks beautiful. But there's a problem. I was in the villa one morning, I think Obiose Kwezili was there too, and Bruce. During President Obasanjo's regime, and we were discussing the Constitution, and I said the 1990 Constitution is an imposition. And President turned that and said 1979 Constitution is the best Constitution we had, and so on and so on. He went on and on and on. And I turned and I said to him, 1979 Constitution, it is nothing but a fruit of a poisonous tree. That's what I said. And he banged the door and he said, don't allow that madman to come to this villa anymore. So why is the Constitution, what's the problem? The problem is, there are two. The first thing is, when the military gave itself legislative powers, it gave itself the power to make law, not the power to make constitution. If we look at our constitution, it says, we the people hereby, the military itself says that the validity of the constitution is if it comes from the people. That's said, we the people, although it didn't come from the people. That's the first problem. The second problem is illegal. I will give you a simple example, sir. Assuming a farm, we have a cocoa farm. One of us is a soldier, one of us is a diplomat chairman, one is a teacher, one is a nurse, and one is a lawyer. And we want cocoa farm. The question is, how do we manage it? Look at Nigeria as that cocoa farm. Will it not make sense for us to sit around the table in what Leopold Senghor calls a universal banquet to agree on how that cocoa farm will be managed? In the case of Nigeria, we have a situation where soldiers decided that this is the way you will manage that cocoa farm. It is only by this way you can manage it. That's them, because the action, intention, desire, excellencies of the peoples of Nigeria was not there. Now, Nigeria is a unique nation. There is few nations like Nigeria in the sense that the various nationalities are divinely placed in special geographical locations. Yorubas in the southwest, Igbos in the southeast, Kanuri in the northeast, Fulanis and so on and so forth. The question is, if we want to build a united nation of Nigeria, how do you do it? The only sensible way to do it is to sit around the table and agree on the terms of that United Nations of Nigeria. That is the only way you can get peace, order, and good government. That is the problem of our constitution. A military government just decided, look at what he said, now this shall be the constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In other words, it is only in Nigeria, in the entire world, that has a decree as its constitution. That is the problem of the constitution. Now, how do we now bring about a constitution of the and this is what the chairman said, that we know that the constitution has a problem. It carries death wound on its face. But how do we now get a constitution? How do we make it a people's constitution? In my view, there's only one way. Only one way. I've spoken about this since 1996. You go into the internet again and again. There's only one way. How? What way? The first thing we must recognize is that, for example, Britain has a government, but it has no written constitution. So what legitimizes the British government? It's very simple. The votes of the people. So, how then do we move? It's very simple. Ozekome has already told us, and this is true, that all the governments of federation came into existence before the 1999 constitution. We came into existence 12 midnight of May 29, 1999. In other words, it wasn't even the constitution that gave us government. Contrary to the norms, like I said here, there are some principles we must recognize. First, it is not a government that gives a nation a constitution. Rather, it is a constitution that gives a nation a government. Government itself is suffering the consequences of a constitution. I repeat, it is not a government of a nation that gives a nation a constitution. It is a constitution that gives a nation a government. In our case, it was a government that gave us a constitution. Number two, it is never the content of a constitution that validates or legitimizes a constitution. It is always the procedure adopted in making a constitution that legitimizes it. Ozekome is an SAN. One single lawyer can write the best constitution in the world. It is unconstitutional. When the people on the other hand, in that cocoa tree, they gather together, they write the worst constitution. It is constitutional. That's why Nkrumah said the people have a right to govern or misgovern themselves through their constitution. They can misgovern themselves, but it is legitimate if they write the worst constitution. That's the truth. The constitutionalist thought the constitution is not law. Rather, it is an agreement by the people to constitute government authority to which they delegate their collective powers. That is also why a constitution cannot be made in exercise of legislative power. In my book, Constitutional Powers and Duties of the President, which was used by President Obasanjo at page 14, I have set out 10 major differences between a law and a constitution. For example, a constitution is made by the people as an agreement. A law is made by the legislative. A constitution is presumed to go before a government, whereas legislature is the consequence of a government and so on. If you want to read, you can look at my book. Now, the peculiarity of Nigeria is such that the only way by which we can get it right is to bring the constitution to the people. Now, do it. This is how we do it. The distinguished senator is here. I want you to listen very carefully. Because the National Assembly is legitimized constitution. Because you came into existence before the constitution, you were legitimized by the votes of the people, just as the government of Britain is legitimized by the votes of the people. But you are legitimized by the votes to make for Nigerians law. So now, what do? Because the people voted for you and they delegated their powers to you to make law, you cannot make a law for the people to give to themselves a constitution. It is your power to do that because of the delegated power the people gave to you by their votes, just like in Britain. You cannot pass a law to give to themselves a constitution, and you can also set the perimeters. In the case of Nigeria, we have had many constitutions. You can, for example, say from each local government, 3 people will come, howsoever, whatsoever. It is your power to do so, because you already possess the delegated power of all people given to you by their votes. Not by that constitution that didn't create you. That constitution, even in the document, says it has created all governments before the constitution came into existence. So you now pass that law to give the people, to enable the people to give themselves a constitution. What will be content of that law? You debate it. There's nothing special about it, and it's a simple process. Now, once you do that, you pass it to the people, to the various states, and they adopt it, and the procedure begins. That is the only way by which we can have a legitimate constitution. I will now come to a final issue, and that is the issue of amendment. The 8th Assembly, National Assembly, spent 1 billion Nigerian naira. 1 billion naira for amendment I shouldn't have spent 1,000 kobo. I want you to listen to me. The tragedy of Nigeria. If you look at even the constitution, it did not even say anything about going around, calling mechanics, giving them bonds, and all of this nonsense, because they said they want to amend the constitution. It is purely the act of the National Assembly. But now they go around, and after that, they now pass purportedly an amended constitution and give it to the president, which is very unconstitutional. You cannot send an amendment to the constitution to the president for his assent. What if he refuses to assent? What happens? What happens? It is unconstitutional. If you now you have to send it, and I am aware of the case of Olis Agbakoba against Attorney General of the Federation. The reason why the judge you send it to the president is because the judge is essentially saying the constitution is not a constitution, it's a mere law. And because it is a law, you have to send it to the president for his assent. It's after all Decree 24 of 1999. You don't need all of those amendments. Forget about them. They are useless. Already we have had, in 2010 we have 5 alterations, 2017 another alteration, 18 another alteration, and they have billions and billions and billions and billions wasted on an exercise in futility. Please, sir, all you need to do is very simple. I summarize. Pass a simple law to enable the peoples, because we are United Nations of Nigeria, United Nations of Nigeria, to enable our people to sit around the table, to agree. That has never happened. What happened in Lancaster is like a writ of summons. The military is an imposition. Now, in honor of Professor Nwabueze. Let us now have a people's constitution facilitated and brought about by the power, by the delegated power given to the National Assembly. I thank you for your attention.